What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? John out here with you. It is Saturday, September 24th, 2022. How are all of you doing out there today? It's time once again to do the picks against the spread. This is week 3 of the NFL season. Now, admittedly, over the last couple weeks, my record has not been great. It was 7-8 in week 1 and 5-10 as the bottom started to fall out a little bit. I'm sitting at 12-18 on the season. And Lauren, my fiance, was 8-7 and then 7-8. She wasn't having a great week, and then she nailed the last 6 games to save it a little bit there. So she's sitting at 15-15, which is not all too bad, and I would take that at this point right now. So this is not going to be a lot of prep over the last couple weeks because I thought that kind of got me in trouble looking around scores and seeing what people will think about it. I'm just going to go with my gut here and give you some of these picks. If you faded my picks last week, you probably did pretty well. Hopefully you don't have to do too much of that and get closer to being above 500 here. So let's get it going. The New Orleans Saints travel to Carolina. Carolina is getting 3.5 points. Now, what is interesting here is Alvin Kamara is going to be back with Jameis Winston there. And is that enough for the Saints to be able to cover a 3.5 against the Panthers? I'm going to say it is. I'm going to take the Saints. Chicago is at Soldier Field. They're going to welcome the Houston Texans, who are looking for their first win of the season. They are 0-1-1. That dang tie with the Indianapolis Colts. But if you picked up Houston in the last 2 weeks, you've done pretty well against the spread. You're 2-0. Can Davis Mills get his first win of the season? Houston's been good to me, so why not? I'll take the Texans in the 3.5 points. Kansas City and Indianapolis. Lucas Oil Stadium is the host site. The Colts are getting 6.5 points to welcome Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I don't think there's much explanation needed there. Indianapolis, they might have had some late comebacks within the first couple weeks and things like that, and then you get blown out, all right? I mean, you just get blown out by the Jags and things like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and take Kansas City and move on. So Buffalo and Miami, it was an incredible comeback last week for the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa. So can they do it against the Bills? Bills Mafia have to be feeling pretty good over the first couple weeks about their team. And I don't see any reason to doubt them. A 5.5 point spread don't think looks too ridiculous, although Poyer and a lot of the other defensive players are going to be out. And Micah Hyde, I think, is going to miss the entire rest of the season. So even with all of that, with Buffalo looking so good and Josh Allen looking like the MVP as they pegged him to be in the beginning of the season, I'm going to take the Bills to cover 5.5. Now, here's the interesting part for me. I did not take Detroit in the last 2 weeks, and I'm 0-2 because of that. They travel to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Vikings didn't look very good on Monday night. Detroit looked really good against the Commanders. Everybody's been putting up points against them. Now, in the last 2 weeks, what I can't argue is Detroit has been in a bevy of shootouts, and they've stayed close. They are getting 6.5 points. I'm going to take the Lions. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I have my point total tiebreaker at 68. I think that's probably high, but I'm just going to leave it there because I just feel like both of these teams are going to get 30 plus points, and I'll trust Detroit this week enough to keep it close. Now here's an interesting one with the Baltimore Ravens and the New England Patriots. They're going to be good traveling to Gillette, are the Ravens. I don't know what's going on with the Patriots there, but when you got Matt Patricia coming back there with Bill Belichick, and you have Mac Jones, because it's no longer Tom Brady over the last couple seasons. Don't really trust Matt Patricia, and I don't really want them to have a lot of success there. So give me Baltimore and John Harbaugh's squad to be a little angry after that comeback and right the ship and beat the New England Patriots. Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Jets. Jets got a big win last week, and Robert Saleh looked pretty good there against the Browns. Now, I should probably pick the Jets because of that reason, but with the last year Super Bowl runner-up, Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow winless right now in the season, and it's just a 4.5 point spread, Cincinnati's got to win by a touchdown. They can't go 0-3. I'm going to take them for that reason. So give me the Bengals. I'm not going to say begrudgingly. They got to find a way to get a win here. I think they might get it done. Now, one of the most precarious situations to me within the first 2 weeks, I always thought that the Tennessee Titans were a good team. I know they're having some struggles there with Tannehill, and Derrick Henry's not finding the end zone as much as they would like. Las Vegas travels to Tennessee, who gets 2.5 points. Give me the Raiders. I don't know what's going on with Tennessee, but it's 2.5. I can take the Raiders to cover by a field goal. Philadelphia and Washington Commanders. Philadelphia has to lay the 6.5 points. They've been scoring points on everybody. But what's interesting for me from the Detroit perspective is the last two opponents for the Lions were the Eagles and the Commanders. And now the Eagles and Commanders are playing themselves in the NFC East. And the Commanders get 6.5. Philadelphia has been scoring a lot of points. I'm going to take them to cover this 6.5, and we'll see what happens with that. Now, this is a game I wish I didn't have to bet on, and maybe because whether or not a quarterback plays or not, the spread can still be covered, but Justin Herbert is listed as questionable with a rib injury. It's 7.5 for Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville's been pretty good to me as far as the spread is concerned. And in the initial Monday lines that I have for you here, it's 7.5. And it went down as much as 3.5 for Jacksonville toward the later part of it because they don't know whether or not Herbert's going to play. So if he played, I would say the Chargers probably could cover in a 7.5. But since I don't know, I'm going to err on the side of the caution and take the Jags in the 7.5 points. Now, with the Rams and the Arizona Cardinals, it was a late comeback opportunity. They gave the backdoor cover here for the Cardinals against the Raiders last week. And the Rams have not looked all that convincing. Injuries and things aside, look, I understand the way it goes in the NFL. It's a week-to-week and injury-leveled year and season for everybody. I'm going to take the 4.5 points at home for Arizona and see if they can cover. Seattle and Atlanta. Oof, this one is a little rough. Seattle is at home. They welcome Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons get 2.5 points. Atlanta's been pretty good to me as well, even though I haven't done that well so far in the year. 2.5 points for the Falcons. I don't know what to make of Seattle just yet, Geno Smith. It's hot and cold, and Atlanta and Marcus Mariota have been able to score some points, but could this be one of those ugly games? A 10-7 game would be just enough for Seattle to cover the spread. It's only 2.5. I'm going to take Atlanta and see where the chips fall. Tampa Bay and Green Bay. Normally this would be a game that I would love to watch. As far as we're covering all these games and running the recaps on the Against the Spread at Hopeless Sports Guy. And Tom Brady's going to be out with most of his receiving core, so I don't know who he's even throwing to, and Green Bay hasn't looked all that great throughout the year, but they're getting 2.5. I don't know who Tom Brady's going to throw to, so I really don't know which way to lean on this one. I feel like I should take Tampa because it should be obvious, but because I don't know who's going to be available, I'm going to take Green Bay and the 2.5, and I won't be too angry if Tom Brady wins this one by a field goal or wins outright. I don't think anybody's going to be angry about that unless you don't like Tom. And because I really don't like Aaron, but I'll take the Packers and the 2.5 points because I just don't know who's going to be available for Tom to throw to. Now, this one might seem easy to me, but I haven't been that great on these picks. San Francisco and Denver, it's 1.5. It's just 1.5? Why? I'm going to take the 49ers to cover the 1.5, and I wouldn't put that as my lock of the week. I hope that makes some sense. I just don't know why the spread's that low. The Monday night game. Now, this might not have had some intrigue up until last week to what I saw the Dallas Cowboys do to the New York Giants. The Giants get 2.5. They're at home in the Meadowlands as they welcome the Cowboys in the divisional rivalry there. Dallas getting 2.5. Look, Cooper Rush didn't look all that bad. And the Dallas defense is pretty good. The Giants are happily 2-0 right now, but again, as rivalry matchups tend to be, you see each other a lot. Dallas's defense, I think, will travel. Give me the boys. I'm going to take them in the 2.5 points. So let's recap it here quickly. I got the Saints over Carolina. They got to cover 3.5. I got Houston getting their first win against the Chicago Bears, and they get 3.5. Kansas City has to win by more than 6.5 against the Colts. Buffalo has to cover 5.5 against the Dolphins. Detroit, I'm going to take them to stay in the shootout. They're getting 6.5 against the Vikings. Baltimore, can they cover 3.5 against the Patriots? We'll see. I should feel pretty comfortable about that one. A desperate Cincinnati team. They need to get a win. They also need to cover 4.5. Give me the Bengals. I'm going to take the Raiders over Tennessee because I don't know what Tennessee is at this point. Just 2.5. I think the Raiders can win by a field goal. Philadelphia and the Commanders. It's 6.5 for the Commanders. Give me the Eagles to win by at least 7 or more. I think they should win by a lot. The Chargers and Jacksonville, just because I don't know if Justin Herbert's going to be available, it's 7.5 points for the Jags. I'm taking the points. Arizona in the same situation with the Rams. Rams haven't looked all that convincing to start the year. I'm going to take the 4.5 with the Cards. Give me the 2.5 on the road for Atlanta against Seattle. That could be a pretty ugly dog game of the week. And begrudgingly, this one I will say, I will take the Packers against Tom Brady's squad and the Buccaneers, just because I don't know who's going to be available for Tom to throw to. Give me the 2.5 for the Pack. I will take San Francisco on the road covering 1.5 against Denver, and I will take Dallas against the division rival Giants with the 2.5 points, with a total points scored in the Detroit Lions and Minnesota Vikings game at 68, but maybe I'll even take an over. So that's my picks for the week, and I'll write Lauren's in there once I see her and she gives me those picks. So catch you guys next week. Let me know how everything is going. Peace. Talk to you soon.